Bible story. When Jesus made a servant boy well. Skippity hop, run and jumped. Servant boy could do so many things. He could dash down the street and run right back. Why, servant boy could also laugh and sing. Servant boy's favorite fun, though, was helping Mr. Captain. Mr. Captain was the greatest man in all the world. At least that is what Servant Boy thought. Mr. Captain tells his soldiers to march, thought Servant Boy. Mr. Captain even tells the cook to make bread. Why, Mr. Captain can do anything. Each day, Servant Boy cleaned Mr. Captain's dusty sandals. Swish, swish! Servant boy swept the floors of Mr. Captain's house. Servant boy even fed Mr. Captain's big horse. I want to help Mr. Captain more, said Servant boy. I must think of a new way each day. Sometimes in the mornings, Servant boy would jump out of bed. Aha! He would cry. I thought of a new way to help Mr. Captain. Servant boy thought of dusting Mr. Captain's clothes. He thought of getting Mr. Captain a cold glass of water in the hot afternoons. One morning, Servant boy woke up. He started to jump out of bed. Oh, moaned Servant boy. Something is wrong. Servant boy fell back on his blankets. His stomach was hurting and aching. His face was sweaty and red. Poor servant boy. He was very, very sick. All day long, servant boy lay in his bed. He could not get up at all. Servant boy tossed and turned. He groaned and cried. Servant boy was very, very ill. Mr. Captain tiptoed into Servant boy's room. Mr. Captain was very kind. He wanted to help Servant boy. Mr. Captain, gasped Servant boy as he tossed on his bed. You are the greatest man in the world. Please, make me well. Mr. Captain knelt down by Servant boy's bed. I am not the greatest man in the world, said Mr. Captain. I cannot make you well. I must ask Jesus to help you. Jesus is God's own son. Servant boy closed his eyes. He was getting weaker and weaker. Mr. Captain walked out of the room. I must do something fast, he said. Quickly, Mr. Captain sent a message to Jesus which said, Please make my servant boy better. Jesus walked to Mr. Captain's house. Jesus walked down the narrow, dusty streets as fast as he could. There was Mr. Captain's house. Jesus was almost there. Whoosh! Mr. Captain's door opened. Mr. Captain's other servants ran down the steps. Wait! Cried the helpers to Jesus. You do not have to walk anymore. Mr. Captain said that you can make servant boy well. You do not even have to come in the door. Jesus smiled. Mr. Captain is right, Jesus said. Mr. Captain understands God's power. You can go back to the house now. Then Jesus turned and walked away. Jesus did not need to go into the house. Trumpety-trum! The helpers ran into the house and up the stairs. The helpers ran right into servant boy's room. And what do you think the helpers saw? Servant boy was well. Servant boy was getting out of bed. I am not sick anymore, said servant boy. Jesus made me well. Quickly, servant boy skipped out of the room. He ran down the steps. Mr. Captain, Servant boy cried, "Jesus made me well." Mr. Captain looked up. He was not surprised. Mr. Captain knew of Jesus' power. Mr. Captain chuckled. He was glad that servant boy was well. "Jesus is wonderful," said Mr. Captain. "He can do anything. Jesus is God's own son."